Worst women in the Bible. Jezebel. The story of Jezebel in the Bible is one that resonates with themes of power, corruption, and eventual downfall. Jezebel is primarily featured in the books of 1 and 2 Kings in the Old Testament. Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of Sidon, a region known for its worship of Baal, a pagan deity. She married Ahab, the king of Israel, in a political alliance meant to strengthen ties between the 2 kingdoms. Ahab was already known for his weakness and wavering faith in Yahweh, the God of Israel. Almost immediately, Jezebel set out to promote the worship of Baal and Asherah, another pagan goddess, in Israel. She erected temples and altars for their worship, and she actively sought to suppress the worship of Yahweh. Her influence over Ahab was profound, and he began to support her efforts to the detriment of his own faith and the spiritual welfare of the kingdom. One of the most famous incidents involving Jezebel is the confrontation between the prophet Elijah and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. Jezebel's prophets challenged Elijah to a contest to see whose God would send down fire to consume a sacrifice. Despite their fervent prayers and rituals, the prophets of Baal were unsuccessful. In contrast, when Elijah called upon Yahweh, fire came down from heaven and consumed his offering, proving the supremacy of the God of Israel. Following this demonstration, Elijah ordered the execution of the prophets of Baal, prompting Jezebel to vow revenge against him. Jezebel's vendetta against the prophets of Yahweh continued, and she relentlessly pursued their deaths. She even fabricated evidence against Naboth, a vineyard owner who refused to sell his land to Ahab, resulting in his unjust execution. This act of manipulation and murder marked a turning point, as it incurred the wrath of God upon Jezebel and her family. The downfall of Jezebel and her dynasty came as prophesied by Elijah. Ahab died in battle, and Jezebel's son, Ahaziah, became king. However, Ahaziah's reign was short-lived, as he was killed by Jehu, a commander in the Israelite army who was anointed by the prophet Elisha to bring judgment upon the house of Ahab. Jezebel's fate was sealed when Jehu ordered her eunuchs to throw her out of a window, resulting in her death. Her body was left to be eaten by dogs, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy that no one would mourn her death and that her remains would be devoured by scavengers. The story of Jezebel serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of idolatry, manipulation, and abuse of power. It illustrates the consequences of turning away from God and following after worldly desires, ultimately leading to destruction and ruin. Delilah. Delilah is a figure from the biblical narrative found in the book of Judges, particularly in chapter 16. She is depicted as a woman from the valley of Sorek, who is known for her cunning and betrayal of the Israelite judge Samson. The story of Delilah begins when Samson, a man of extraordinary strength granted by God, falls in love with her. Delilah, however, is approached by the Philistine rulers, who offer her a substantial sum of money in exchange for discovering the secret of Samson's strength, which they see as a threat to their power. Delilah agrees to the offer and begins to coax Samson into revealing the source of his strength. She asks him repeatedly, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Each time, Samson gives her a false answer. The first time, he tells her that if he is bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, he will become as weak as any other man. Delilah, in collusion with the Philistines, tries this, but Samson easily breaks free. Delilah persists in her attempts to extract the truth from Samson. She tries various methods, including new ropes, weaving his hair into a loom, and even using his hair as a stake in the ground, but Samson always manages to break free. With each failed attempt, Delilah becomes more frustrated and continues to plead with Samson to reveal his secret. Finally, after much persuasion and emotional manipulation, Samson reveals the true secret of his strength to Delilah. His hair has never been cut since birth, as it is a symbol of his Nazirite vow to God. Delilah, seizing this information, betrays Samson by calling upon the Philistine rulers and instructing them to cut his hair while he sleeps. As Samson slumbers in Delilah's lap, she summons a barber who shaves off the source of his strength. When Samson awakens, he finds himself weakened, and the Philistine sees him, gouging out his eyes and taking him captive. Delilah's betrayal of Samson ultimately leads to his downfall. However, in a final act of strength and redemption, Samson prays to God for renewed strength and pushes apart the pillars of the Philistine temple during his celebration, bringing down the structure and killing himself along with thousands of Philistines. Delilah's story serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of betrayal and the consequences of succumbing to temptation and manipulation. Though she is often portrayed negatively for her role in Samson's demise, she is also a complex figure, emblematic of the power dynamics and moral ambiguities present in biblical narratives. Herodias. The story of Herodias is primarily found in the New Testament, particularly in the Gospels of Matthew 1:4-3-1-2 and Mark 6:17-29. She is depicted as a woman who plays a significant role in the execution of John the Baptist, a prophet who publicly denounced her marriage to Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea. Herodias was married to Herod Philip, Herod Antipas' brother. However, she left Philip to marry Herod Antipas, violating Jewish laws as well as Roman social conventions regarding marriage and adultery. John the Baptist, known for his fiery preaching and fearless denunciations of sin, openly condemned this union, declaring it unlawful and immoral. Herod Antipas was initially intrigued by John's preaching and even protected him from harm, recognizing him as a holy man. However, Herodias harbored deep resentments towards John for publicly criticizing her marriage. Herodias saw John as a threat to her status and influence within the court. During a banquet held by Herod Antipas, Herodias' daughter, often referred to as Salome, although her name is not mentioned in the biblical text, danced before the guests, pleasing Herod and his courtiers. In a moment of grandiosity, Herod promised to grant her any request, up to half his kingdom. Prompted by her mother, Herodias' daughter asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Although Herod was troubled by the request, he felt obligated to fulfill his vow in front of his guests. Reluctantly, he ordered the execution of John the Baptist. John was subsequently beheaded, and his head was brought to Herodias' daughter on a platter, who then presented it to her mother as requested. Herod's decision to execute John the Baptist deeply troubled him, as he respected John as a holy man and feared the consequences of his actions. The story of Herodias illustrates the dangers of pride, ambition, and moral compromise. Herodias' desire for revenge and her manipulation of Herod led to the tragic death of John the Baptist, a prophet revered by many. Herodias is often portrayed as a symbol of moral corruption and the destructive influence of power and ambition. Her actions serve as a cautionary tale in the biblical narrative, warning against the consequences of forsaking righteousness for personal gain.